want to talk to you guys about a time in my life when I was about 22, 23 years old, and then I'm going to tie it to your business. You are in sales, a small business owner, a real estate agent, which is my background. I want you guys to listen up. There are some valuable lessons that I'm going to teach you guys out of this experience. So I'm 22, maybe 23 years old. I graduated college, got into the car business for a couple of months. Realized I was absolutely terrible at that, which most people are. I just hadn't learned any sales skills. It failed at that. I was waiting some tables to try to make ends meet. I tried window, door, siding sales. That wasn't any good. I was really struggling. And one day Dad comes down and picks me up and he says, "You're moving back home with us. You're 3 months behind on your rent. And we co-signed for you, so you're ruining our credit. We're going to pay this thing off. You're going to live with us for a little bit. You're going to get a job, get your feet under you." Totally humiliating. So I go and I get a job as a grunt laborer for a builder. I was the guy that was mixing concrete. I was going and picking up boards. I was running errands. I was doing work that, quite frankly, wasn't in line with what I thought I was going to do coming out of school with a degree. But I learned a lot of valuable lessons there. And the number one lesson that I learned in that experience was that I am not meant for manual labor. Ask my wife, I'm bad at it. Those types of things are not suited for me. But I'll tell you, after about a year and a half of doing this kind of work, I noticed that, maybe it's time for me to get back into some sort of a white collar relationship building sales type of role, even though I'd failed at it so much before. I just thought to myself, it must be easier selling this product that I am currently building, must be easier selling it than building it. And so I went and got my real estate license. And when I told my boss at the time, when I told him I was going to get into real estate, I remember some specific words that he said. He said, "I guess you're going to go sit on the couch and wait on the phone to ring, and you're going to make more than you're ever making here." And I said, "I guess so." And it was that mentality that I had when I got into real estate in my early 20s. When I moved into real estate, I was 23, kind of tipping the scales on 24 years old. This was 19, 20 years ago. And I went through an entire year of full-time real estate, and I sold one house. I made $1,800. And I know this is 20 years ago, and so some of you that are younger are like, "Oh yeah, you could live on $1,800. No, you couldn't. I barely survived. I don't know how I survived. I made $1,800, and the next year I sold 3 houses, and I made like $6,000, and I felt like at times during that year, I felt like I was living like a king. I'd make a couple of $1,000s, and I'd go spend it, and then I'd live on ramen noodles for a little while. In the third year in business, I sold 6 houses, and I made $18,000. Oh, and I felt so good that third year. And by the time I hit my 4th year, I'd figured some things out. The first thing I figured out is I was probably too stubbornly obstinate in the first 3 years, and I probably should have quit. But I figured some things out around that 4th year in real estate, and I actually started to make good money. I started having the relationships that I built in the first 3 years started to pay off. And I realized that there were mistakes that I had been making. And I want you guys to listen to this. And this doesn't matter if you are a real estate agent or not. If you're a small business owner or you're in sales and you're getting into establishing your own business that is a service-based business that relies on relationships or people buying your service that you're offering, just like real estate. I believe that there are 5 mistakes that I didn't know about when I was in my early 20s. And if this is you're getting into real estate or a service-based business, I want you to pay close attention to these mistakes. So what are these mistakes? Mistake number 1, establishing improper expectations. Improper expectations. So my expectation when I got into real estate is just what my boss had said. "I guess you're going to go sit on the couch and wait for the phone to ring and make a lot of money." That was my expectation. I thought that just because I got into real estate and I had a big group of influence. I'd grown up as a pastor's kid, so all the people from church and that I'd known from the community, I thought that immediately I would start getting those phone calls. And the truth is, I got 1 in a year and 3 the next year. My expectations were all false. So you have to establish proper expectations. Now, if you're getting into a service-based industry or real estate, your expectations shouldn't be that you're only going to get one piece of business in the first year. You can fix that. It shouldn't be that you're going to get 3 pieces of business the second year. You can fix that too. But you have to establish proper expectations. And that's the first mistake that I see a lot of real estate agents make. The second mistake that I see small businesses make, service-based businesses, real estate agents make, is failing to communicate and deepen the relationships that they have. So failure to focus on their relationships. Just because you know someone doesn't mean that they're going to use you, doesn't mean that they owe you. I've seen friendships lost over this. I'm a real estate agent. My friend used someone else to buy or sell a house. Well, maybe they had a friendship with that person too. Maybe that person was more credible. Maybe that person cultivated and nurtured that relationship a little bit more. And that's what you should be doing with your relationships. If you fail to cultivate those relationships and focus on strengthening those relationships, you're not going to get the business that you want. The third thing that cause agents and small businesses to fail is a terrible narrative. A terrible narrative. Have you ever had that person call you that's a friend of yours that you've avoided taking their call because you know that they're going to ask for something? Well, if every time you establish a communication or contact with someone that you know, you're constantly pitching, when are you going to buy a house? When are you going to buy a house? When are you going to sell a house? Come list with me. Send me referrals. If that's all you ever do in your relationships, your narrative is awful. And I need you to clean that up. You need to build a narrative, the way that you talk about your business versus the way that you just communicate with friends needs to be attracting instead of repelling. And most real estate agents that I see often have a narrative that repels and pushes people away from them. And that's what you got to clean up. That's mistake number 3. Mistake number 4, and this is where it starts to get fun, is they don't lead generate. They do nothing to lead generate. They're relying on relationships only, and they do no generation of leads. They don't have anything cold coming in. They're not creating any engagement with people that they don't know. And you have to focus on lead generation if you're going to grow and succeed, especially in those early years. As you get further and further into your career, you might decide to focus exclusively on the relationships that you have, your sphere of influence. But if you're early on, you're going to have those relationships, but you need to lead generate as well. And the last thing that causes small businesses to fail is a fear of prospecting. Fear of prospecting. You are prospecting when you pick the phone up and ask your friend to go to coffee. You are prospecting when you call the lead that just registered on your website. You're prospecting when you go into a neighborhood and you canvass that neighborhood. If you are scared of prospecting, you need to get over it right now, because that's the 5th thing that causes someone in a small business to fail.